Could we have a roll call, Paula?
Mayor Fay,
Here?
Trustee Cobb,
Here.
Trustee Hilton Hinga,
Here.
Trustee Jenkins,
Here.
Trustee DeCretzi,
Here.
Trustee Rowe,
Here.
and Trustee Swisher.
Here.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As you entered the room, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. First of all, we have an agenda that all the trustees have, and you could have picked it up on the way in. Any changes to the agenda as it's written? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as it's written?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
We have Lucrezi and Cobb. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. And then we have the consent agenda, which in this case only has one item. Are there any changes to be made in the consent agenda? I have a motion to pass the consent agenda.
So move.
Jenkins, Swisher, all in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is adopted. As you came in, there was a clipboard where you could sign in to speak at public comment. If anybody failed to sign in, they're welcome to do so. Thank you, Paula. And then Lisa will look to see whether there's anybody on Zoom as well. But there's one signer on the clipboard, which is Eric Gibb. Please state Eric. Eric Gibb et al.
Et al. And team.
State your name and address.
Eric Gibb, 230 North Gunnison Avenue, Buena Vista, Colorado. I'm here representing the BV Strong Community Dinner Group. We are a group who over the last 9 years have organized the community dinner, which probably everyone here is familiar with. And we're here for mainly to thank people. We'd like to report that we had around 2,800 of our fellow Buena Vistans join us for dinner on Main Street. That represented 380 tables. And we continue to do that year after year. This was our 9th year of doing that. We are supported by a large number of people in the community who we desperately want to thank. First of all, of course, the committee that works so hard. We have committee members that are on your administration as well. Mike Hammond and Shane Garcia also participate with us in organizing this every year. Next year, we hope to do it again, and that will be our 10th annual event. I won't go through the whole story, but as many of you know, or if you don't, it was started with a tragedy where we lost members of the Johnson family in a terrible landslide at Agnes Vale Falls. Originally, it was somewhat of a somber memorial for that particular event. It was a BV Strong event that we come together when people who we care deeply about have trouble or are injured. And since then, I don't think in a bad way, but it has become more and more of a celebration of us as a community. We all appreciate the tourists that come visit us. We appreciate the business they bring to our community, but I think we all take a little bit of a deep breath in October or September. And it's nice to come together and see our neighbors and see that we're still a community. Besides, obviously thanking the committee for all the work that they've put together, we want to thank a bunch of other people as well. The Administration of the town is extremely generous in helping us out. Public Works, as you might imagine, our first responders and police force come together and help us put on this event. So we want to thank all of you for allowing our town administration to do that. We also desperately want to thank you for the $3,000 that you guys donate in the budget every year to make sure this happens. Our budget every year is around $15,000, but the $3,000 does help us get from year to year. That $15,000 is everything from donations to t-shirt sales, which can be demonstrated here. But we kind of barely make it year to year, but we continue to be successful, and we hope to in the future. So if you'd be kind enough to allow that $3,000 to continue in the budget, we'd be very appreciative. I think, you know, it is the event in town that services the most residents of Buena Vista. Not that 14er Fest and other fest aren't fantastic, but they sort of help us with our tourist economy and also help out of towners. This is primarily for your constituents, and so we appreciate the support that you give for that. There's also companies that support us, and I want to mention Antero Septic comes and donates porta potties, Chaffee County or Chaffee Waste and Waste Management donate all of the receptacles to help us make this event occur. We want to just make it clear that every year we have a motto, which is just dinner. And we just want to let you know, because you reach out to many of your constituents, we really resist any political affiliation, any commercial affiliation. We certainly can't stop businesses up and down Main Street from doing what they want. But we think that the beauty of this event in many ways is because it's just dinner. We're again going to have our 10th annual event, if we're allowed by the permitting process next year. We're hoping that that will occur. I think it's the Monday, the 18th of September, barring any kind of disaster. And again, we just want to thank you and the town of Buena Vista, the administration, the financial support you give, along with the services you give, and then also just thank the volunteers. Really, we get hundreds of volunteers that just come out on Main Street and help us put on tables. It really is one of those things that makes you proud to be a Buena Vistan, and we want to thank you for that. One little asterisk, we've been looking into it, and it looks like the Guinness Book of World Records is 3,200 people for a potluck. It was done somewhere in India, the country of India. I don't know what that looks like in India, but it could be in our 10th annual version next year. We will bring in the Guinness Book of World Records and try to become famous for the largest potluck dinner in the world. So again, we thank you for that. If you have any questions for us, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you all very much.
Very much.
Did you find anyone else on Zoom?
So. No.
Okay. So we will go to staff reports. We're estimating these 5 reports to take 20 minutes and then up to 10 minutes in addition to that for board discussion. We're going to try to keep compressing things a little bit, shorten our meetings up if we can. So Lisa, Town Administrator.
I have given you a report. It looks very similar to last time, but if you'll notice the red font in the shadowing and tours, that's all my updates. I am very, very close to being done next week. I'll meet with police. I'll have dinner with the entire police department, which is going to be great. I'm looking forward to that, and also visit them. And I'll also be going to the courts and meeting the judge and kind of see how they coordinate that. And so then I will pretty much be done. I was able to meet with the Chaffee Fire Chief here, and we had our annual review the other day, and I suspect he'll maybe touch on that a little bit as well, but I thought that went very well. Got to see their fire truck, which is 105 foot ladder, which was very interesting, and also just kind of talked about some things for the future that I'm sure he'll touch on as part of his report. Just want to mention new DOLA rep. I don't know if you heard me mention that earlier, but Randy Sneed, she seems to be very willing to work with us and meet with us. And I think even we'll be meeting with her, Joseph and I, for coffee, just to kind of just talk to her about some things that are going on and show her the police department, the new police facility. And I just put a little note in there that it kind of mentioned BB Strong, because one of the things that I've noticed most about this community since I've been here a little over a month is just the ginormous amount of community members that just always rolling up their sleeves or helping, to fund and donate, but also volunteering on our boards and doing it so pleasantly and so willingly. And so I just think that's really unique to BB. And there's a picture in here of the Tom Rollins and family, and we're going to be putting that picture up here in the community center. They've given generously to the stage over in McPhellany Park. So that's it for me. I'll turn it over to the treasurer then.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you bet. So my report in the packet, nothing out of the ordinary this past couple of weeks in terms of AP and payroll, things like that. So two things I just want to highlight. One, as Lisa mentioned, great meeting with DOLA to review our water project and our grant request. We will be planning to present our project to their hearings committee December 6th or 7th. A similar process to what we did with the police station. So looking forward to that. And we are slowly moving along with the purchase of the the existing PD, soon to be Town Hall East. Heart of the Rockies, the current owner, they are just now getting through their legal review. Their board of directors will be reviewing it next week. And hopefully we'll get this thing closed late October, or early November. So still on track for that, but a little later than I was hoping. But no impacts really from that. So I'll take any questions you may have.
Mayor, I have a question actually for Lisa. If I know, but it's okay for me to go back. Just a real quick question, Lisa. Do you have plans sitting down with each board member and maybe just
I
getting?
do, yes. And I just wanted to finish the loop with staff, and then I'll be sending out an email to
Thank you, Paula.
meet with each of you to
Okay.
talk about kind of your goals and just get to know you a little bit better.
Great. Okay, thank
I
you.
look forward to that.
Looks like the chief slipped out and is on Zoom now.
Yes, I am. I had a Red Bull waiting for me over here, so my report should be real short and sweet. Our new car finally came in that we ordered last year, like Shane alluded to in the budget meeting. It's just taken some time to get parts and equipment and things, so there's been a delay on some of that. Our 12th position that's gone unfilled. We did hire a young man who works at the Chaffee County Jail, a really nice kid named Blake, and he starts the police academy in January. So he's not on the road with us, probably won't be until May, but still we're excited to have him join us. I think you all met Officer Michelle Flores last week or last meeting when she was sworn in. She's doing really well in field training. And this week we sent her to the standard field sobriety testing training, SFST class. And that's one of the things we use for a DUI investigation. Chris Marusar is our corporal. He is at pistol instructor school this week. So we're excited about that. Officer Fraser Pomfret is switching over to K9. That's an ongoing process. He's working really well with Thor. He was out in the parking lot today looking for, practicing on the scents and things that the dog does for searching for drugs and things. So that's going really well. Working with Sean and Grant with code enforcement on signage and different issues, being responsive to complaints about camping in certain areas. We've been getting some specific complaints near Railroad. So Grant put some signs up over there, so we appreciate that, and hopefully that'll mitigate some of those complaints. We've been doing a lot of security training with local businesses. We partnered with the library yesterday and also Fading West. And they were real helpful with some things, and they're going to try to put on a security training where they're going to host it, and several agencies are going to be able to come and participate. So that's a cool proposition coming up in 2023. And then we did our physical ability challenge on September 28th. This went really well. This was the second of 2. So officers that pass get a monetary bonus. And we had some officers pass this time that did not last time. So that was part of the goal, is to get our fitness up there. So we're happy for that. The last thing I wanted to point out, I wanted to thank Mayor Fay for pointing out there was a issue with the statistics that I provided. The statistics, very astute observation. She noticed that we had 110 accidents listed, which was not accurate at all. So,
It's like, huh.
yeah,
Good.
so good catch on that. Thanks for keeping my feet over the flames. I checked with Dispatch. They mistakenly compiled the statistics for September for every agency. So that would include fire departments, Salida Police, Chaffee County, and BV, which interestingly, there was 110 accidents in the county, but only 11 of those were ours. So I believe Town Clerk Paula has handed out the stats just for BVPD. And let me know if you have any questions. That's all I've got.
Yeah, thanks for updating that. Thank you, Paula, for handing them out. Yeah, I didn't like seeing 75 animal complaints or 95 animal complaints. Questions for the chief?
Mayor, I have one.
Yes.
It's more of a thank you, chief. I've reached out to the chief a few times, and I appreciate your quick response and very thorough responses to my questions. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely appreciate our input on public safety issues. So thank you as well.
Any other questions?
Is that one?
Yes.
Chief, the security training, is that cybersecurity or just physical security?
No, it's for things related, like if there's an active shooter in the building or if there's a threat outside the building. And we use something called the standard response protocol. So Megan and I are instructors in that. So we teach that. And there's been a couple incidents at Fading West where they've needed to put their building on like what we call a secure status. And it's great when local businesses coordinate with us. So we're all on the same page when we have to respond to things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fire chief is next.
Bertram?
Good evening, everybody. Can't believe it's already October. September just kind of went past, but one of the most exciting things for me with starting in October is Kira's back from maternity leave. So now she can start doing all this work that I didn't realize she did to do it. So we're currently in the application period for admin assistant and our additional fire inspector. So we're hoping we're going to get some good applicants for that, be able to hire that and take some of those duties away from Kira now that she's fire marshal. We had a busy time with different events throughout the county. We did staff the concert, the renewal at Meadows. We staffed that 24 hours a day from the time camping opened till it ended. So that was great. No major events with that from our side of it. We did help EMS on a few medical calls. We had a booth at 14er Fest. I'm sure some of you guys saw us out there. We were out at the Colorado versus Texas Tomato War, which was kind of interesting. Of course, most of this happened while I was out of town, but we did go out and staff the high school bonfire. We took some notes for next year. If anybody saw it, it got added onto at the last minute and was a little large. So we're going to be scaling that down next year. One thing from that, we were invited over to the high school homecoming football game. We had the fire truck out there with sirens, and it's just kind of started a tradition. Now we've been at all the home games. We'll be out on Friday, the last home game. So when they score, you hear sirens now. So it's
That's great.
kind of a new thing. It's exciting. We've got a lot of our firefighters excited about being out there. So it's been a fun thing for us. as far as training, 2 weeks, well, the beginning of October 1st and 2nd, we brought in some, a couple instructors from FDNY. So large municipal fire department came out and trained with us. I included a couple pictures of us out there. There was 16 from Chaffee Fire. We had 3 from Salida Fire out there joined us. So 2 days of intensive training, kind of learned other ways of doing things. And also we spent part of the time trying to understand terminology difference between New York and the way we do it. One thing that the most comical thing for us is, FDNY has about 12,000 firefighters and they all call the portable radio a handy talkie. Sounds like something we would call when we were 7 years old. That was entertaining, but we had fun with them. Lots of good training with that. Last month, Stephen Jones, our recruitment retention coordinator, myself, we went to Phoenix, Arizona for a recruitment retention conference and certification class. It's where a bunch of fire departments come together and try to figure out how we work on recruiting people. Volunteerism is down across the country, but still 80% of the firefighters in the country are volunteers. So we came together to come up with some different plans on recruiting more people. And we've got some great stuff coming forward, great resources, different things to try. Coincidentally, after we got back from that, this last Saturday, we brought on, we're starting a candidate academy with 6 new volunteers. So that's a great thing. They'll be spread out throughout the county. We actually have one for almost every station this go around. So we're really excited about this, getting some new blood in. There's a lot of enthusiasm coming forward. So that's exciting. So around the area, I was put Station 4 on here. I am still hoping that we will get it done this year. We're waiting on doors and everything. It's been, for well over a year, it's been on this agenda. So we're getting flooring done. We're excited to hopefully get that station done. That's one in Poncha Springs. As far as Chaffee Chips, we did our 3rd Chaffee Chips event this week, which is down by Hecla Junction area. Our last one will be next week in Buffalo Hills 356 area. So that's just north of town here. Couple other things that come up. We did have a good meeting with Lisa yesterday at the fire station, a couple hours. We went through, kind of reviewed the whole process of kind of, what Chaffee Fire is, how we ended up where we're at with the agreement. And then we went through the agreement. I think everything looks good. The current IGA we have, one thing we did discuss is, the only possible change we see in the near future is if we do evaluate the potential of a mill levy increase. Just because of funding everything, we do have one of the lowest mill levies in the state of 3.936 mills. This would not be something that would happen right away. It'd also be coordinated with the town. Usually if we decide to start moving that direction, it'd be at least 2 years in advance that we start planning and have the town in there. We just kind of want to make you guys aware of that. That is something that we always have to look at considering with that. Another thing that came up in our board meeting last week was we did have representation from Game Trail Subdivisions, Adventures Unlimited Ranch, 3L, 4L come to our meeting, wanting us to look at the possibility of putting a fire station out in the area of County Road 361 and 384. So we're starting a committee to kind of look at feasibility of that, what the costs are, or how we can staff it. But the benefit to the town is that North Conway drainage, that would be very close to there. North Conway drainage is very important to the town. So kind of want to make you aware of it. It's not something we're going to throw up next week, but we definitely want to evaluate this. This was on the table about 10 years ago. Game Trail was going to donate land to the fire department. It never came to fruition with that. So now that property is back on the table again. It's right off 361. It would be great property. We just have to evaluate all the stuff that go with it and get a commitment for volunteers to be able to staff that station. So we'll keep you posted if that moves forward, but we're going to start meeting as a committee moving forward. And then last thing, this is Fire Prevention Week this week. And we'll be in the schools on Friday. We had about 6 years ago, I believe, we had a big Minion skit. It was kind of a big thing, and we're bringing back the Minions this year. We're excited about it. It's going to be loud. We get kids riled up, dancing Minions, all kinds of stuff. So we will have it video, so I'll have to find a way to share it with you guys. It's something we're excited about. We're excited to bring it back. So that's all I've got for you guys. Any questions?
With the number of fire incidents going up and up and up year after year since 2019, is there something that we ought to be doing differently as a community to to halt that progression?
So besides putting gates at the top of the passes, it's kind of hard. I mean, so we've got a wide range of stuff that's contributing to the calls. I mean, we are getting quite a few traffic accidents as a bigger portion of it. Also, just the demand on EMS system and all of that. We are running more medical calls, so we're working with EMS on that. Just, as the population grows, it makes it tough. We are going to get more calls with that. Part of what we're trying to do with the addition of our wildland mitigation coordinator to help with wildland mitigation to prevent when we do get the fire that comes down, trying to keep it from spreading farther. And then as well as we're building up our fire marshal prevention office and trying to do as much as we can from the prevention side. That's the biggest thing there, and just making sure we've got the staff to be able to respond to these. But
Yeah. Other questions for the fire chief? Thank you.
everybody have a great evening.
Back, you're up again.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and trustees. My report can be found on page 46, 47. So staffing wise, we've rolled back to our winter hours, so the airport will be staffed from 8 to 4. And this weekend, we'll have all hands on deck for the fly-in, so invite everybody to come out and join us for the fly-in. We've got some posters and stuff around. We've been advertising. You might hear it on the radio as well. If all goes well, the weather's good, we'll have a couple warbirds there, a T6 trainer and a P-51 Mustang. So those are pretty neat aircraft. So we're open. And Knights of Columbus will be providing the food. So, our next advisory board meeting will be next Tuesday at the airport. Operation wise, as I mentioned in my brief earlier, the thing Leonardo UK division just completed their testing. They left on the Sunday, October 2nd, and the crews left middle of the week around 5th and 6th, all the equipment. Boeing now is confirmed they're coming back on the 15th. So we're not sure how we're going to plan that out on the day of the fly-in. We'll have, well, if anything, we'll have 2 helicopters everybody can look at when they're coming in. We got another load of jet fuel. That makes the 7th load. We'll end up getting another load this year. Once you get down in the next page, you'll see, but this will be the largest load of fuel that we've got since the Westland fire that we've had. So that year we sold more fuel, but we had the Westland fire, plus we had hats, plus we had testing. So we're doing pretty good this year with, without actually having a major incident. So, and as I mentioned, flying on the 15th, so we're looking at 8 till 2 in the afternoon. So the public, so there'll be breakfast on and then lunch after that. We did pick up our skid steer from the DIA sales. So we've got that back at the airport and we're just getting ready for the winter ops. And you can see some of the numbers there on our table. The big takeaways, again, we're still seeing a lot of jet traffic increasing over the years, over this year than the previous. Fuel sales we finally surpassed our year to date. We had a pretty slow start in the spring and early summer and weather and winds and everything else, but now we've surpassed the 2021 year to date with the fact that we sold 16,000 gallons this month alone. And you can see that right on the chart down below, quite a big difference. So the September sales we had the hats barbecue and we had the helicopter testing with the big one. So it makes a big difference and you can see it in the charts. That's all I have for my report. If you have any questions?
Questions for Jack?
There I have one. I don't know if
Yes,
it's
Mark.
Philip or Jack, but as far as Jet A fuel sales, you buy it at a certain price and you sell it. I'm sure there's a profit there. Does that just stay right? Yeah, that just stays right in the airport fund. And where does those?
So yes, we track the purchase of fuel, actually in a payable account throughout the year. Cost of goods sold kind of thing. So the expenses are tracked that way, and then we reconcile at the end of the year and we insert the actual cost of fuel by month towards the end of the year. The revenues are tracked real time. So every time they make a sale, whether it's credit card or whatnot, that's reconciled monthly. So we see revenues as we progress through the year. Expenses for fuel are kind of reconciled towards the end of the year. So, but it all stays in the airport fund.
Thank you.
We treat it as an inventory item at the end of the year.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's right.
Other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Jack, I ran into the Leonardo guys and on 2 separate occasions, and they were the nicest people from England, and they really love our town, and they love spending money here and hanging out. And I just thought that was real great to get to know those guys. So I just wanted to
Yeah,
say
we
about
talked to them. They had a good time here. They really enjoyed themselves.
yeah.
Thanks, Devin.
Yeah.
It was a nice helicopter too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Is that on our budget?
Jack, I don't know if you were tuned in last month, but we did talk a little bit about the tour that you gave Mark, Libby, and
Oh, yeah.
me, and how nice it was at the Leonardo guys to let us on the helicopter.
Yeah, absolutely.
The tour was really great too.
Yeah, I saw Joe the day after they left, and I guess it was the top money-making weekend he had at Bush and Bowl.
Is that right?
After they left. They're going away.
Became their second home.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay.
Okay, so now we will be moving on to business items. And the first of them has to do with the retail marijuana store. For store number 2. We have Adam Paul with us. And he did send out a nice letter about their efforts and sincerity about getting ready to getting ready to keep going on this process. So thank you, Adam. Is this, Paula, are you running this or?
I can review an overview of the history that we've gone through.
Okay.
With PCG1. As Mayor Fay shared, that PCG1 is requesting a second 6-month extension of the conditional approval of their retail marijuana store license located at 318 Charles Street. In November of 2021, the trustees conditionally approved the retail marijuana license with the following requirements to be completed on or before May 9th of 2022. The state license issued by the Colorado Department of Revenue Marijuana Enforcement Division, that one has been completed. They have received that. A fully executed deed or lease, which has been received. Approval of a minor subdivision correcting the illegal subdivision of lot 8 at 5 feet of lot 7, block 15 of the original plat of the town of Buena Vista. Submission of the site plan of the exterior of the building, that has been completed. Premise plan of the interior of the building, which has been completed. An approved security plan, completed construction, certificate of occupancy issued by the Chaffee County Departments of Development Services, as well as the town of Buena Vista, and then a fire inspection by the Chaffee County Fire Protection District. On April 26, 2022, Adam Paul, who, like Mayor Fay shared, is with us tonight, met with the trustees to request a 6-month extension due to the unforeseen issues of securing a surveyor to complete the minor subdivision process and a contractor to complete the remodel. The board approved a 6-month extension to November 9th, 2022. The subdivision application has been submitted, and included in that application that was submitted on June 21st, 2022, it had the minor subdivision plat, the existing condition survey, title commitment, and minor subdivision fees. As outlined in Planner Doug Tart's memo, since the initial submittal of this minor subdivision application in June, PCG1 had received 1 round of comments from the referral agencies, which included agreements with BV Sanitation District to either abandon or remove existing sanitary service lines, PC Joint has worked diligently to address all red line comments and continues to work directly with with BV Sanitation District to address their issues accordingly. The plat is currently out for second referrals. TARD also states that the timeframe that minor subdivisions has taken in is standard for the minor subdivision process. In comparison, the town currently has minor subdivisions under review reaching the 18-month point. Building permits have been issued by Chaffee County Development Services for the completion of the construction and remodel of the interior building, and the electrical work is slated to be completed November 2nd. Adam Hall has communicated regularly with the planning department as well as the town clerk throughout this process, and staff feels confident that the subdivision is nearing completion, and therefore we are recommending that the board approve an extension with all the requirements being met by May 9th, 2023.
Mr. Paul, would you like to speak with us?
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Mayor, trustees, thank you for having me here. I know we'd probably rather be at a ribbon cutting than doing Groundhog Day again. Sounds like you've had a long day, and so I will be certainly brief. You did see the email, and we did have a few breakthroughs today. I was able to secure another electrician, which is great, and they feel like they can get in by the end of next week. We have the sign company ready to go. We have the sign preliminarily approved with what that's going to be. The company will be called Forage. Our security team is ready to come and do the build out. That'll be to the tune of $11,000 to $12,000. So currently in this process, we're almost $20,000 in, and I imagine we'll have another 20 to 25,000 before we get our doors open, if allowed to proceed. I did talk to Doug today, and it looks like a couple of the minor things that are outstanding on the subdivision can be cleared up. One is finding, just making sure that we have the mapping of the water lines. And so that should be an easy thing with our engineering company. And then BV Sand, actually, the way I understand after a phone call with Patty today, we only need to sign off with the property owner stating that if these properties are sold, then those the sewer lines will need to be taken care of. So we'll be able to take care of that with a letter stating that we can continue to use status quo the service lines that are in place. And that'll also go on the plat note stating that when the sale of the property takes place, that that'll have to be rectified. The other piece of this, because as you know, in the early 80s, this whole property was not properly subdivided. Once we are able to finish this, I'm going to help Rogelio do all of those properties, which will bring everything into compliance with the city, or forgive me, with the town. And that'll be a win-win for everybody. So I thank you for your time. I'm open to any questions. We certainly never thought coming into this that we'd be here again, but we are committed. We're excited to be part of the community if given this opportunity. We do have till November 8th, but we're here now because we have to let the state know by October 18th if we do have an extension or not. And that'll depend upon our being able to move that forward as well. I will state that the fire department did come out and give us a preliminary. So we have everything that we need from the fire department as well. And once we get this construction done, we should be in great shape. And I may have failed to mention last time, a truck ran into the building as well and caused a bunch of damage to the roof. So we had to have the power removed from the actual building and had to restructure the roof. And so power should be hooked up in the next day or two again. So it's been you ever seen, no, we're not the movie Money Pit. But it's still a great opportunity, and your staff's been incredible in trying to work through these things. And I have a lot of experience working with other communities and cities. And I can tell you have a top-notch group and have really tried to work with us in a fair and equitable manner. So I thank you for that. So I'm happy to take any questions or just sit down and quiet.
There's some questions.
Do you think the 6 months will do it this time?
Yeah.
There were other people out there that would have liked to have had the license that you have. And I can't as a business owner, I can relate to things don't always go the way you want them to. And there is a lot of unforeseen things, but in the end, would another 6 months get you to completion?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else? So the issue before us is whether to approve the extension by passing resolution number 67, series 2022. And the heading for that reads, a resolution of the Board of Trustees for the town of Buena Vista, Colorado, approving a second 6-month extension of the conditional approval of the retail marijuana store license for PCG1 LLC. If you have no changes in the resolution, I'd like a motion to pass it.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 67, series 2022.
Okay,
Second.
so it's Kretzy, Cobb. I think we should do a roll call on this.
Trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi,
Yes.
trustee Rowe,
Yes.
trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll see you at the river.
Yes.
Get that electrician. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Mr. Paul. Okay, so this next business item has to do with the Unified Building Code, the UDC, Unified Development Code, having to do with mechanical equipment in setbacks. And it's like you're talking about this, Joseph.
Thank you. And I would like to clarify it is a public hearing. So we need to follow public hearing protocol. So I'll back over to you.
Okay. I'd like to begin a public hearing with regard to this matter, dealing with the Unified Development Code to clarify regulations relating to encroachments into the setback.
Thank you so much. As a reminder to you all, there's not necessarily an applicant as may happen in other public hearing settings. So staff will present. We will have an opportunity for public comment on this topic if anyone is around at that point. And then you all are welcome to do your deliberations and consider a decision. So we can go to the next slide there. A brief note, we're considering tonight, or I'm presenting, you're considering an amendment to our Unified Development Code. And anytime we look at modifying our UDC, which is chapter 16 of our municipal code, that code dictates a process for considering that. And so that process includes a public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission, where they consider the topic. They make a recommendation to you all, and then you all consider the P&Z's recommendation and the topic itself at a public hearing and make a decision. So we have completed that first step. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this topic at their September 7th meeting. And they did recommend approval to you all for consideration. And really, we're here tonight. And the second thing, just to wrap that process piece up, is the criteria on the screen. This is detailed in your staff report that Doug put together for you. So I won't go through each one, but you're welcome to ask specific questions if you have those. But always remember that when we're considering something in the code or to change the code, we need to reflect on the criteria that would be the basis for your decision. So if you feel like there's one of the criteria that is not being met, you are more than welcome to use that as a justification for requesting conditions or denial of the proposal. So it's a relatively straightforward concept. As we see more and more development happening on smaller and smaller lots in town, we're seeing architects and designers and contractors and homeowners seeking to utilize more square footage of their property than had happened prior. If you consider the idea of having a large lot and a small home, you don't necessarily need to think about your setbacks too much because you have a lot of space in your property for anything that you might need. However, when we think about especially what we refer to as Old Town lots or 25-foot wide lots, or lots that are even smaller than that, say in the South Main area, the question of where you're placing certain pieces of equipment that you need for your home becomes very important and more of a requirement to consider creative placements for those. So we've seen contractors and property owners, as I mentioned, starting to place mechanical equipment like that in these pictures in setbacks. And our current code, our zoning code, which, as you all know, really reflects on and regulates and ensures compliance on things outside the walls of your home usually, but within your property lines. That's the space in which our zoning rules and regs really focus. And so setbacks, in this case, if we're thinking about an Old Town lot, say north of the elementary school, those setbacks are 3 feet on each side. So we're really not talking about much space between a building and a potential fence. And even as little as 6 feet between both buildings, between two properties. And so we see that building code actually requires a 3-foot access area around these types of pieces of equipment. And yet the inspectors are not enforcing that necessarily because they recognize that many technicians that work on this equipment can do so with less space than 3 feet. So they're exercising their discretion as they have it to not fail, let's say, a certificate of occupancy solely based on less than 3 feet clearance around this equipment. But they have elevated to town staff the idea that should somebody need to work on this equipment and cross into a property owner's lot, that can create problems, as you might imagine. And so our code is silent on this matter. Our code does allow equipment, electrical, mechanical equipment, gas meters that are served by public utilities to exist within setbacks. However, these pieces of equipment are private. They're solely fed by sort of after the meter electricity or gas, and they serve that specific home. So they're private pieces of equipment. Our code doesn't really talk about that. And so what we've been contemplating and working with a few contractors on and the Planning and Zoning Commission on is a way in which to address this idea, have our code no longer be silent, and yet allow flexibility for folks to continue to utilize setbacks as long as they have in place an agreement with their neighbor that recognizes that they may need access on their neighbor's property for maintenance of that equipment. So Jeff and Catherine, our legal counsel, have been instrumental in helping us write this code in such a way that helps honor this idea that we need to address this, or at least staff feels like it needs to be addressed. And yet we also want to offer flexibility and lean on relationships between neighbors and goodwill and all those sorts of things to allow for these things to happen. So that's the sort of why behind all this. Really, that kind of wraps up my presentation. Obviously, I'm happy to take questions, and I know Jeff is on and can clarify any legal side.
So I open it.
Well, the only clarification I wanted to make just ahead of time is that with the ordinance was drafted, we didn't include the correct subsection where it's going to actually be added. So just if you do decide you want to approve this, I got a couple of really small revisions I'll mention to you at that stage.
Thanks, Jeff.
Open to public comment. We're open to public comment. Is there any on Zoom? Lisa? No one participating on Zoom? Okay, I'll close public comment.
I was just going to say it's a very odd flex I just wanted to throw out there, but the national the electrical code changes in January. And so every new building and new house has to have all electrical disconnects, everything in the front of the house. So this would allow for more flexibility for that moving forward. There's more I just want to flex on that, because it's something I never thought I'd know, but I know that now. It's kind of funny, but help build it more compliant too.
Would the agreement carry forward with the sale of the home and new neighbors?
Yeah, the intent and the way the code is drafted is that that agreement would be recorded on both properties. So it would show the title work. And so in, the future property owners would need to read their title work and understand it's there, but it would follow the property.
Mayor, I have a question for Joseph.
Yes.
You mentioned the neighbor, as far as signing off on things, as far as encroaching into that space, because like you were mentioning that 3-foot setbacks. Is there some sort of written agreement or something that there has to be a mutual agreement between those two property owners before things can move forward? Wonder if somebody says, I don't want that. I don't want that encroachment. I mean, what happens then if there's pushback from a neighbor?
Yeah. So the way the code is currently conceived or thought about is that that would be a requirement or a prerequisite to getting a CO. Is having that legal agreement recorded, signed by both neighbors and recorded on those properties. The reality is that does mean that a neighbor could say no. No, I don't want the possibility of some future technician or person entering my property to service your equipment. In that case, I think the builder or the homeowner of that property that's wanted to place that equipment in that setback would need to find a different location for it.
Okay.
And in the circumstances we've seen, they could. It would just be far less convenient and maybe less user friendly for the homeowners to have a piece of equipment right outside their back door.
Right.
That kind of idea.
Right.
Yes, Sue.
Joseph, what happens to somebody who wants to put in something like this after they already have a CO? I mean,
Yeah. The short answer is that we don't have a lot of triggers to be able to regulate that as a town. If they're doing that kind of work, they probably should pull some sort of trade permit. But we don't always get notified of those trade permits being pulled with the county because they don't need to come to town. So there's definitely I guess we could call it a loophole. One that I don't necessarily know how we can solve, given our current structures and systems.
Sure. Okay.
Any other questions? So the board could consider a motion to adopt ordinance number 27, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Buena Vista, adding a new subsection 9 to section 16.02.2.8.2 of chapter 16 of the Buena Vista Municipal Code concerning mechanical equipment in setbacks.
And Mayor, just to jump in, if we're going to have a motion, it actually should be a new subsection 4. And then it should be to section 1602.282C. And then we'll fix that in section 1 of the ordinance as well. It's just going in a different location than originally planned.
Okay. Would you say that again? It's subsection 4, and then the
Yep.
last part of the 16.02.2.8.2 is really a 4? Or?
It's a capital C. So you're basically creating a new subsection C4 to that whole long string of numbers. And then in section 1, it would read a new subsection 4 is hereby added to section 1602.282C of the Buena Vista Municipal Code. And I'll send Paula a revised version if this gets approved.
Is there somebody who would like to make that motion? Read it. Is there someone who would like to make the motion?
Could you read that
Or-
again, please, Mayor? In front of you?
Yes, I'll read it again.
So that we don't
Mr.
have to?
Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I would accept a motion, which would be entitled an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the town of Buena Vista, adding a new subsection C4 to section 16.02.2.8C of chapter 16 of the Buena Vista Municipal Code concerning mechanical equipment and setbacks.
So moved as amended.
Second. Okay, Jenkins, Swisher. Okay. Let's have a roll call vote on this, please.
Trustee Swisher,
Yes.
trustee Rowe,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins.
Yes.
Trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee Cobb.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. Sorry for the curveball on the numbering there.
Thank you. All right. Now we're about ready to go back to the budget.
Who's ready to budget? Hey, gang. I'm gonna stand up for this.
I am too.
Everybody stand up. I'm serious.
Stand up. Everybody stand up.
Stand up, take a breath.
Stand up.
Stretch your legs.
Jumping jacks.
You as a presenter more. Ah. All right.
Finally made it to the budget.
As much room as I hoped.
Candy, yeah, you need more candy.
I know.
All right, now you can sit down. Or you can keep standing. That doesn't bother me at all. All right. So, welcome to the introduction of our budget, 2023 draft budget. I'm going to explain kind of what we're going to cover. Happy to also answer any questions, whether it's related to the work session earlier or what's in your packet this evening or questions about process. So don't hold back and you can interrupt me at any time. So what I plan to cover tonight is one, this is our first introduction of it. And so in the packet, we have a few things. One is my staff memo. And so I would recommend as we move forward in these meetings, reference the memo because that will guide you on what to look at. It will explain any changes from meeting to meeting, things like that. So the memo, I would say, look at that first, and then you can, start looking at other things or ask questions from there. So the memo provides you with a summary of where we're at right now, and I'll touch on a few points there in a moment. After that, we have put together a summary sheet of the capital projects with their funding sources. Okay, so we split our budget up into two pieces. We have our operating budgets and we have our capital budget. And the tool that we use, ClearGov, which I'm going to show you here this evening as well, that is broken up into two modules. There's operating budgets, and then there's a section for capital budgets. And that section for capital budget's great because it can take in a lot of detail and explanation of what the projects are all about. But eventually, once we settle on which projects we want to do, all of that gets put into what we call our operating budgets. So towards the end of this process, we will integrate those together for the general fund. Airport water already have them included, okay? I'm not going to show you the capital improvement fund operating budget because it's too much to keep track of. So we will talk about capital projects. So I'll try to keep a summary sheet like this, and then I'll show you in ClearGov where you can go in and look at each project individually if you choose to do that. So you can see broken into the funds, the different capital projects on this sheet. I will come back to this because there's a few key points I want to highlight here on the general fund capital projects.
So we'll come back to this in a moment. And then finally, there's what we kind of traditionally do with our budget, which is set it up in a spreadsheet type format. And this part right here is really for public consumption, okay? You are certainly welcome to look at it, reference it, ask questions about it, but the intent is for staff and for the board to utilize ClearGov when you want to go in and look at things. It's more collaborative, it's updated live, and we will make changes from meeting to meeting. So that is what I would ask, that you participate in this process. Putting this in the packet is very time consuming. It's an export and trying to get it to look right. Takes quite a bit of time, but it's important for the public to have reference to something related to the budget. So that's the intent of this in the packet. The public does not have access to ClearGov while we're in this process. So that's why it's important we have this. Okay. You can use it, but ClearGov is a little bit easier to look at. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to cover a few key points in my memo, point out a couple of things on the capital budget, and then I will give you a demo of ClearGov, and then you can ask questions about that. Okay, so first off, tonight, the only action that the board needs to take is to make a motion to set the public hearing dates. And you'll see that in the Board of Trustee action here. What this does is it sets public notice for the public hearings that will be on October 25th, November 8th, November 22nd, and December 13th. This is an important part of our process. And so from here on out, public can come and make comment to the board, in addition to things like advisory boards that will come and speak to you all sessions. So that is the action for tonight. And I guess, Mayor, we could do that at any point. We could do that now, in fact, if you wanted, just to get it out of the way.
Sure.
Paul, if you're ready for that.
I'm ready. So I'd like a motion to set the 2023 budget public hearing dates for the following regular meetings: October 25th, November 8th, November 22nd, and December 13th of 2022. Is there a motion to that effect?
I so move. Second.
Lucrezi. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Perfect.
Dates are established.
Heavy lifting is over for tonight, so now it's just fun. Okay. So it's hard to look at that spreadsheet and kind of decipher, okay, what's the overall summary? So for each fund, I tried to provide a summary of where we're at in the draft budget, and you can see we have several funds to keep track of. So general fund, which is the largest, our largest fund, quite a bit going on there. The good news is we are structurally balanced as we sit right now, meaning it's a balanced budget, including the transfers we talked about, both to the capital improvement fund and the airport fund. So that's great. That includes our pay plan. It includes pretty much everything that the department heads talked with you all during the work session. A lot of things that we've talked about through the year. As an example, well, like beautification. Paula had mentioned that they wanted to defer a $5,000 or the $5,000 from their budget this year into next year. Our budget carries that, right? So that doesn't mean just accept it as is. It just means that we've captured those things along the way, and they are in the draft budget as it's presented. So good news is general funds in very good shape, and I think our projections for revenues will continue to increase over the next couple of months because our actual sales taxes will be a bit higher than budgeted for this year. So we will gain wiggle room as we proceed forward because of that. Capital Improvement Fund, Again, I'm not going to open that up until we're at the end of the budget. We'll focus on a summary of our capital projects and talk about it that way. But again, this is the area where we have a bit of work to do. If you look at the summary sheet here for general fund. Again, let me explain this real quick. So breaking it into the funding sources, you'll see there's a total cost for each project here in this column. And then to the right of that are the funding sources. So general fund in this sense means it's coming from the operating transfer that we're making in 2023. Okay, so out of that 390,000, that's what that column is hitting against. Then we have what we call fund balance. Sometimes this is, well, a lot of times this is how we handle carryovers from year to year. So you'll see one of our favorite longtime projects here, the Arizona Trail and Bridge, will roll over into next year. And you will see that fund balance there is a big portion of that project. That's because we had it on the books this year. And so we're not spending that money. So it is falling to fund balance. So we're allocating that next year by doing it this way. Okay. And then any grants that we are lining up for these projects, some of them are already locked in. Some of them, especially in like recreation, are planned grant applications. And then various other funding sources. So like, for instance, Conservation Trust Fund, as I explained earlier, is a funding source for recreation facilities, outdoor things. So you can see that Shane has allocated 36,000 from that towards Vista Park and Trail and the Whipple Bridge decking replacement over here on the river. But the pain point that we will continue to work through is that from the general fund, from that transfer, we're about $664,000 of project requests, about $390,000 of project. Okay, so we've got to work. We're already making progress towards that. In Dean's area, for example, the rugged computers that he's asking for, we're integrating that into the space available on the police station construction project that's already on the books, right? He's also looking to spend early in this year on Lexipol, not on Lexipol, but the report writing software through Tyler, utilizing this year's budget. So I anticipate that this will start to get cleaned up over the next few weeks through staff action. But it's a good thing to be aware of, because you all might need to be put in a position to make decisions about, do we not do some of these projects? Or do we spend into fund balance to do some of these projects? So we'll talk more about that when we get to that point. And I think in the next couple of meetings, this will clean up a little bit more. So water fund is in good shape, although we're spending a lot of money. And you will see, and especially in their capital requests, we are reflecting the entire water plant and gallery expansion project next year in next year's budget. Okay, so some of these monies we'll actually spend this year, but it's too hard to predict at this point. So we're putting all of that out into next year. But you will see we are getting substantial amount of grant and loan forgiveness. So really the debt that we're going to carry out of that project is very reasonable. And our budget, the 2023 budget, contains the debt, the principal and interest for the new debt on that project. So water fund is in very good shape. And we're also projecting water rights purchases in that budget. Yeah.
So do we record the grant money in the budget when we know we have the grant, or when we hope to have the grant?
Both. So for instance, we've been awarded 1.1 million from CWCB for the phase 1 of the water plant project. We're going to go under contract on that this month. That's reflected in here under grants. But then there's a lot of the grants that are in here that we anticipate getting in 2023. So it's a combination of both.
Oh, we haven't been notified yet that we actually have that grant. The other 2.1 million.
That's actually principal forgiveness. I just called it grant, but it's principal forgiveness on the SRF loan. And we have been notified that that's what we qualify for. Airport fund. Jack was hurried at the end of his presentation, but you can see there in the airport fund, we have a lot of projects scheduled for next year, including about close to $100,000 of cash match towards those grant projects. So with that $160,000 transfer, we are still at a deficit of $55,000. So Jack and his team are working to adjust expenses in their budget to try to bring that even. But that's another area to just be mindful of, because we may need to look at increasing that transfer to balance that account. That's one of those, or that fund. We cannot be upside down in that fund. So we do need to balance it at the end of this process.
Question about the airport fund. What is the history of that? Has that always been upside down, or has there ever been a time when it was,
2018, we got it to almost be balanced.
Okay.
And we were pretty excited about that. Our margins on fuel sales were much higher than they are right at the moment. We had the fire in 2018, that, so as Jack mentioned, huge sales.
Okay.
And we didn't have any major capital projects that year.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's always been a needed general fund transfer. Okay. The other funds, street fund, stormwater fund, conservation trust fund. I'll save marijuana for a second here. Those all look great. Sean is building up a great nest egg in the street fund, which is very good, because I imagine there's going to be some substantial street projects beyond what we're doing from year to year. So that's good. Stormwater, the focus is really going to be more on updating that master plan next year to give an updated view of what we should be focusing on for stormwater projects. So marijuana, the last one that I'll talk about here. Brand new fund. This year was really the first full year that we have. We have smaller revenues this year than we originally budgeted for. I think we put $100,000 in that budget. We're not going to get anywhere close to that. But next year, we do anticipate probably coming in close to $70,000 in that fund. So fund balance after next year will probably be around $100,000 plus. So you can start thinking about, that's a fund, an additional fund that can be leveraged for capital projects as well.
is that pretty restricted as far as needs to go to capital, right?
It is. So it was ballot language that the voters approved, and it is restricted. I can't recall off the top of my head exactly everything that was there, but capital projects for sure, and especially recreation projects. But I think some housing stuff as well was intertwined into that. So we can refresh ourselves on what that ballot language is.
Hey, Philip, on that, I've been reading that in other parts of the state that actually marijuana revenues have been falling just because it's legal recreationally in so many places. Is that taken into account in your projections?
Yeah, I mean, it's not falling for us because it's all brand new and we're kind of late to it.
Yeah.
So everything's great for us right at the moment.
Yeah.
But we have received 4 months.
Started in May. We've got to check for half of May.
So we now can see what one store does. These projections are not based on 2 stores. It's more like one 1.25, 1.5 times what we're doing right now, just knowing that the market will saturate. And it's not a surprise that we're hearing that statewide, those revenues are decreasing a bit. So we're trying to be pretty conservative with these projections.
And is it also dependent to some degree on tourism? I guess to some degree.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Okay.
So yeah, it definitely spikes in the summertime, and then even in May, from May to June and July was pretty drastic.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. That's it for where we're at on the funds. Any other questions at this point?
Look, I do have the ballot question pulled up if you want to know the list of what was on there as far as capital.
Go for it while I open up.
Okay, it says, on the ballot question, derived from such tax be collected, retained, and expended exclusively for community support services, capital improvements and facilities, which shall include but not be limited to expenditures for parks, open space and recreation, infrastructure improvements, economic development initiatives, land acquisition, affordable housing initiatives, and community support grants as a voter approved revenue change. So we did have quite a wide.
So that include but not limited to.
Yeah.
The whole world's your oyster.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, let's,
Explanation.
yeah, you bet. Let's take a quick look at ClearGov. So
Yeah, good.
after this meeting, I'm going to flood you with emails. You will get emails inviting you to review our operating funds and the capital budget module I was talking about earlier. Unfortunately, it's split by fund, so you'll receive several emails, but once you're in the system, you're in the system. So you can click on that, the first email you see, and then it'll take you to the site. It's your trustee or mayor email, and it'll prompt you to create a password. Let's see if I entered mine correctly. Hey. Great. I can't X that. Can't see it on this right there. I got it. Okay.
I have a really stupid question.
It's not.
Yeah, it is. So last year, it's been probably a year since I was of whatever. So do I have to remember the correct password that I had
No.
a year ago? Because
No, there's a forget. There's a forget. Yeah. So that's true. Anybody that has logged in before and you remember this, you can try, and that it should still work. But yes, you can utilize the forgot password. And
okay.
You want me to do that, Phil? Yeah. Oh.
It's like a video game.
Five. Yeah, say that way. It's hard to see. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. When you log in, you'll see a screen like this. Over on the left is where you'll find the main categories that you'll be looking at. So capital budgeting, 1. Operating budgeting, 2. Okay. Let's click on operate. I'm seeing more here than you will. You'll have a simplified view compared to this, but operating budgeting, when you click on this, you'll see the list of our operating funds. So general fund, water fund, airport, and so on. And so you can click on any one of these, and I'm just going to use an example budget I created for simplicity. Turn myself to a reviewer of what you will see. When you come in here, you'll see at the top, there will be some summary things. A really nice high-level snapshot that'll show you revenues, expenses, and then whether we're showing a surplus or a deficit, which is a great quick way to see where each fund sits right at the moment. And then when you scroll down here, you'll see expenditures and revenues, and it defaults to expenditures first. You can expand individually and you'll get into various department level, or you can just expand all and scroll through. So from here, I recommend that you first set columns that you're interested in. I recommend keeping it simple so that you're not scrolling all over the place. So I pull up something like account ID and full year 2022 budgeted, just so you can see prior year and then the current year. By default, it will show you 2023 in progress. So that's this yellow right here. This is what you're looking at to see by account what is in there. Okay. So the main thing you can do with this is, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't look at. It's yours to look at, right? But there's a lot in here when you start digging through. So if you're interested in a specific department, you know, you can start over on the left and kind of drill down and find the department. But if you get to something and you're like, oh, that's not self-explanatory, or I wonder, you know, how this compares to a couple of years ago, or, you know, whatever. There's a great way to communicate directly with staff. And over here on the right, you will see a few things. They will show in green if there's something to look at here. But you can click the little conversation bubble here and simply throw that in there, and then Lisa and I get an email and we say, Gina wants to know what the heck this is. And she can click in here and say, you know, it's pencils. So it's a great way to keep kind of a record, but we can reply as we have time, you have time to look at this. I know in the past, Libby's done a great job of utilizing this, and it's to get quick answers, quick questions and
You always
answers.
answer.
It's awesome. So I like that feature of this. Also, you'll see like a little sticky tab thing here. This is our note. This is an explanation of more detail of what it is. So staff will utilize this to explain, hey, this went up 15% because. So you don't really need to use this. This is really more a further explanation on individual items. And so if you see that green and you're curious, you can click on that.
Yes, so Philip, to clarify that, if they direct it to a person, it goes to that individual on the budget, or you and Lisa?
Good question. The department head will receive the email as well as Lisa and I. So that's a good clarification. So if it's in IT, you should get an email as well.
And the sticky note though is global? Or is it, do you know?
Sorry, sticky note is global.
Asking.
What does that mean? What do you?
Is it a global comment? Like this went up 15% so that everyone can see that?
Yes.
So it's not getting asked the same question over.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I
yes.
would say if they click the sticky first, it might explain.
Right, it might, yeah.
What they do.
Oh, sure. So that's why if it's green, you can click on it and see it and it will show you
It
what.
might explain it for you to where you don't have to ask a question.
Yeah, good clarification. So everybody can see that.
Instead of wood pencils. Upgrade everybody.
So don't forget to look at revenues if you're interested in looking at that as well. That's very quick. There's only one way to do this. Go in and take a look. Yeah.
Philip, so I've gone through this and I want to bring that information with me to the meeting. What's the best way to do that? I mean, does it show what you've been working on? If I pull it up here at a meeting, will I be able to see everything that I've had questions with and stuff?
Great question. I am not so sure. There's an easy way to do that. would recommend that you just kind of keep track of the ones that maybe are bigger questions or questions you want to share with the group. Yeah. Okay. And then what Lisa and I will do, that we did this last year, that I really liked it. Well, if we saw some questions coming in here, I would actually put it in the memo so that all the board members could kind of see it, because in case someone's hasn't made it in here to look at it. But if it's clear, it's a good question, clarifying question, we'll put it in that memo, staff memo at the next meeting. So yeah, I guess just jot it down. I'll see if there's a way to summarize that. But. Okay, so that's operating budgets, and you'll see invitations for those. The other one is the capital budgeting. When you go in here, we're in the 2023 capital budget cycle. View dashboard. You'll see a lot of numbers, a lot of requests and a lot of numbers. It's a 5-year capital plan. So again, it's not 13, 14 million all in 1 year. But you can see all sorts of summary here on this top sheet, by year, by department, all of that good stuff. A great way to see individual requests is from the request manager. And it looks like I sorted on somebody. Joseph. It's picking on Joseph. Clear that. So it's smart enough to remember anytime you filter on any of these, it will remember that. So don't forget to clear the filter or you won't see everything. So in here, this is where you can see individual projects. And let's just look at Dean's, or this is Sean's. So you can click on individual projects and get a further description and explanation, funding breakdown, and all of that good stuff. This is a great module because we use this to build our budget book at the end of the budget cycle. Dean, let's see, police, airport, some other departments as well, but do a fantastic job putting in pictures and explanations and things like that. So anyway, so you'll get an invitation to see this as well, so you can see individual projects.
Is there any way that we can do any damage in there?
Yeah.
No. Just for viewer, just for you can put something in that little question bubble that's
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Again, zero, Joseph, budget up.
That's good.
Sorry.
And the mayor balanced the budget.
So we can't hurt anything.
You cannot hurt it.
Good enough.
Sorry.
I think that's all I have. Lisa, I know was planning on working on a summary
I
of.
was taking good notes.
Clear. So I think you'll also receive a cheat sheet on how to navigate ClearGov if that's of use too. So we'll get that as well.
It's really a nice program.
It is. It's nice.
Sorry, Devin, I just realized you didn't see any of that on the share screen.
It's okay. I've done it a few times now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go get the cheat sheet.
Just give me the link and I can figure it out. I found it online, but it was last year's, so.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Okay. One last thing on the business items is the question of whether we as the Board of Trustees would like to make a statement, a resolution of our board saying that we support ballot issue 6A, which is designed to improve the availability of affordable housing in Chaffee County. And essentially, it provides a means of providing revenues to the Chaffee Housing Authority, which it will then use in a designated manner, percentage-wise, to try to actually build or fund or help or take loans or remodel, whatever it is it takes to try to get some affordable housing and workforce housing here in Chaffee County. Where it's funded is a mill levy of 3.5 mills. So everybody who owns a property in Chaffee County would see their taxes go up by an average, they say, of $9 a month for individuals and $32 a month for businesses. So I am very much in favor of this. I've worked on this project basically for 4 or 5 years. And it just, I think that the Housing Authority is in good hands and that it might actually make a lot of progress if we can provide funding to it. So who has questions, comments?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
If we do approve this, it's kind of more of a legal question for Jeff or anybody. As far as our conversations after we approve, or if we approve this, are we allowed to discuss this at all in public, or wasn't there
I think
something?
that you can discuss it personally. I think we have this one opportunity to make a statement as a group.
But as far as once you get past that, then we, as a group, we cannot organize some sort of thing to support this,
I
right?
think that's true. Can you hear that, Jeff?
Yep, I can hear you. Yeah, and that's correct. So it basically the Fair Campaign Practices Act prevents the use of public funds to advocate for any particular ballot issue. And the only thing that allows you to do is to pass one resolution expressing your intent as the board on behalf of the town. But personally, you're free to do whatever you feel like you need to do. You just can't be doing it in your official capacity.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the
Welcome.
clarification.
I have a question.
Yes.
I think when Becky Gray presented to us, she was going to look into the possibility of whatever scholarships or something for folks who were, folks who make very little money who were heavily impacted by this. Do you know if any of that has happened?
I don't think that is in the proposed law at all.
I can speak a little.
Yes.
One of the proposed uses of the funds is rental assistance program. And so one of the ideas was behind that program, as well as the down payment assistance program, is to help folks that can demonstrate impact from this measure.
Okay.
That'd be one of the qualifying aspects of those programs. If they, if $9 a month or especially if it's at home, it's worth less than the average assessed value, you're going to see less impact. But if a landlord is saying, hey, I'm raising rents by $100 a month,
I see.
Even though my property tax is only 50, whatever the case may be, those programs would be also funded through this measure to help make sure that folks aren't losing housing or having an increased burden due to the measure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The statistics that are stated in here are just frightening, that 91% of people can't afford to buy a house, in Chaffee County. It's just, staggering.
I have a random question. The 15% for organizational operations, what does that mean exactly?
I would assume that that's their staff, basically.
Yeah, and grant writers and stuff like that, right? So right now, you all help fund the housing authority through an IGA. And the total of that funding is about $185,000 a year. That funds their basic staffing of 2 to 3 folks. Grants that they've been able to leverage quite successfully have paid for additional staff for programs. The IGA expires at the end of 2023.
Okay.
So should this measure pass, the idea would be the housing authority would not be coming back to you as a jurisdiction to help fund like you are doing now. Instead, the revenues from this measure would take over that funding to help pay for the staff that do the work.
Gotcha.
And they've used their funding, the amounts that they've gotten so far. they've gotten probably 10 times that in grant money. So they're very good at getting grants, and so if you picture that they're gonna keep that ratio, they're gonna get a lot more money than what just this mill levy will provide. But, then they start being able to potentially make a real difference here. So I'd like to have our restaurants be able to be open, as many days of the week as the owners choose, rather than just because they can't get enough staff, they have to close a few days a week or a few hours earlier than they might have. We want people to be able to work in the factory, building all those houses that we need for affordable housing. We want to be able to have our teachers and our police officers and, the prison workers, just, our ordinary citizens be able to actually afford to live here.
I'll make a motion to approve, but I do want to say one thing. So like, I think this is great. I think we need something for sure, 100%. I hope we can continue to look at other creative ways so we don't have to keep reflecting things on homeowners in the sense of maybe what they're already paying. So I think this is something to focus on, but I would like to continue on and think of other ways in the future that we can be creative in coming up with solutions for funds for housing and things like that. But I know we need to do something, so I'm happy to make a motion to approve this.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So I have Lucrezi and Rowe.
Is there still room for comment?
Oh, yeah.
I guess I think, to your point, I guess I feel like it is our biggest hope right now for getting a substantial amount of funding for housing. And I agree that it won't solve all our problems, but I can't see anything that would be as remotely effective as this. And it does throw it back on businesses and homeowners, but I think it's hopefully manageable for most, and it'll pay dividends well beyond what it costs people. And I think, I just think it's just something we sort of have to do if we're serious about affordable housing or more housing, hopefully affordable and attainable. So.
Anybody else have comments? Okay. All in favor of passing this? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Did you vote yes or?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. I just want to make sure in case you had abstained. Okay, good. Thank you very much. So now we have trustee. I'd like to start on that. First of all, hopefully you've seen the emails from the IT department about the cybersecurity training workshop. And they're very entertaining little videos to watch. Anyway, please do that by the end of October. And then we continue to have a problem with emails as they become entangled with the open meetings law. And it's just so easy to have it happen. It's happened to probably the majority of us in the last week. But basically, one way it's happening is that we'll get an interesting email from somebody outside of our organization. And then we'll think, well, I want to have these other people see this. So you send it out to a couple people maybe, or maybe 5 people, but then they all start interacting with each other and all of a sudden we've had a meeting. So if you get an email from an outside source and you think it's interesting, if it's a person, you could ask them to come and talk at public comment. Or if it's somebody that you want to respond to, you could start a new email and correspond directly with that person. But try not to put any other trustees on it. Because once it's out of your hands, you don't control where that email goes. And all of a sudden it becomes an open meeting violation. Is there more you could add to that?
No, I think that covers it. I think always encouraging people to come to the public and ask you questions in the public forum. We have that public section comment right at the beginning. And so just encouraging them to come talk at the next meeting. It's a perfect way to
So that's it for my little spiel. But anyway, we really do have to be careful because it's happening more than we would like. Because we want it to not happen at all. So other trustee interaction. Mark, got anything?
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about this, the word vision. I know it comes up a lot in our discussions. And I know the comp plan is coming down the road and, our vision should be, what our citizens are looking for in our community. But I think between now and then, we have a lot of important decisions to make without that new comp plan. And I'm wondering if it might be maybe after the first year, start the year out new, maybe the board gets together in some sort of retreat or whatever, and really go around and see what each of our individual vision is for moving forward in the community. Because I think that's going to be coming up. And it would be nice if we were all kind of understanding of what our thoughts are individually. So I'm just suggesting if you guys, that might be a good idea after the first year, put something like that together moving forward.
Sounds like a good idea.
That work with the open meeting thing, it's a retreat, we're all together.
We have to say that the public can come.
We do, but they typically
just arrange for it.
notice it.
And we did this last year at the airport, which was kind of, I assume kind of like the same idea.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a little retreat thing.
So would you want this to be separate from the goals setting, or would you want it to kind of be rolled into the goals for the year?
I think that's a good question, Lisa. Hadn't thought about it that far. It's more of just impromptu, just relaxed, not go really too in depth to the weeds with it. Just kind of a general idea from each board member, what their thoughts are on that, kind of their big picture, their 30,000 foot view maybe of the future of the community. And just to kind of give us all an idea where we are moving forward might help our further discussions. You don't know, okay, well, that makes sense because I know we talked about that. That's kind of what you're thinking about. So.
Yeah. We could use that as a way to start looking at the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Date.
Yeah, I was just thinking that that kind of ties in with sort of the concept of getting some preliminary engagement just to build the scope for the comp plan. So maybe even doing it even sooner than later.
I wonder if we could, to your idea of keeping it somewhat informal. I mean, I know we have noticing requirements that we'll comply with, but I wonder if it could even be like a holiday party or get together type idea where there is discussion about what's your future vision of town. And we can work on coming up with some starter questions that we especially get to
Yeah.
how we're crafting a comp plan. But it might be the purpose is not to come out with goals. The purpose is to have both get to know each other, you all get to know each other and know how you're thinking, and then helping give us some nuggets of direction for comp plan.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, Joseph. That's kind of what I was thinking, just don't really set things in motion, just ideas.
Well, certainly you're all poised in that, in knowing, because you have public approaching you. We just talked about that. So,
Right.
you know, you have people coming to you with ideas and thoughts and they're telling you any issues. So you are in a position to kind of take all of that people are telling you, the constituents, and give us sort of a wrap up. That's not to say we won't do extensive community engagement directly, but I think it's definitely a good thing. So I think that would be good. We could put something like that together.
Mhm.
Thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Mark. Tina?
Just a few things, I guess. Went to the Trails Advisory Board. They're excited, I think, to have their work session with what they're looking forward to, projects and such with the budget. I know that Sunset Vista is very high up on the list. As when I went, they asked lots of questions about that. And it's like, I don't, don't have just $400,000 just laying around, like come in and have a conversation, provide your lists of asks and wants and why it's important. And so I think they have some good direction. So they're excited for when they come in to chat with us. I wanted to give a big shout out, I guess, to Heather and the Chamber group. Their meetup with the coffee event that was here. I thought it was great. I'm excited that they're doing that, and I'll miss the next one, and I'm bummed about it because I think that one went so well. So I encourage folks to come out to that, just to, if nothing more, just to hear kind of what's happening in town. And also the P&Z meeting was, I was thankful for the opportunity that we could, that was the first time I had been able to go to one. I don't know how often that happens, but just listening to their thoughts and how they approach things, and felt really nice. Maybe not collaborative, might be like too big of a word, but it was nice to be able to just hear the different ideas and thought process of how things work out. So I appreciate that opportunity and look forward to hopefully some others as well. And if that's possible, or if that does come up, but I think that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sue, just I would actually echo some of Gina's comments that I liked the setup at the P&Z meeting, just because I felt like it really encouraged a pretty rich discussion that might not have happened if it had just been us, and I don't really know how they operate, but I just thought it was good to have as many people commenting as did on one topic, and hopefully it saves some time for somebody somewhere. I'm sorry, Devin, that it didn't fit with your schedule, but I liked that format. And I also thought that, to Gina's point as well, that the business, the chamber meeting was really great. It was a good chance to hear from people I don't normally interact with in town, and just talk with different folks from the warden at the prison to or the correctional facility to other folks in town, business owners and folks I don't normally see. So I did like that. And then just another plug for the fly-in this coming Saturday. Thank heavens Jack was here to actually name some of the jets that will be there. The warbirds that will be there. But it should be a lot of fun, and it's a big event for the airport. So that's it for me.
Peter?
Yeah, following up on what I kind of mentioned 2 weeks ago about trying to get kind of, I guess it's similar in line with what you were talking about too, but trying to get kind of a roundtable around or talk with folks about how do we kind of a workforce assessment, essentially, like what are the actual needs for the businesses in town. And so I followed up, folks suggested I reach out to Jake Chaffee, so he and I talked, and then I went to the chamber coffee as well and talked with Heather. And so follow up with her, but we're thinking of, or she wanted to kind of initiate a roundtable with kind of mainstream businesses to get around and just start talking. And I mentioned this during the coffee, and some people came up to me afterwards and like, yeah, I think, for example, a lot of people in our summer, you could have apartments available that they could actually afford, and they wouldn't want to actually live in the apartments because they don't want to lease. They want to be here for 2 months and go. And so it's a different, try to understand the different kind of workforce that we have that is specific to BD. And so we had some really good conversation about that, and Heather wants to kind of initiate a roundtable that we could all be included in, but it'd be a lot of Main Street business owners to talk about, what are some of the successes they're having, some of the constraints they have, and try to, again, just start that discussion ahead of a comp plan moving forward. But again, it just gets people talking and building. And then Jake said that they have a plan to do this in Q1 next year, but it'd be less Main Street businesses and more major employers in the county, or where they want to go in the county for economic development, and less on mainstream businesses. So trying to coordinate a lot of the questions and assessments, kind of these conversations to then kind of help supplement and build out their program for Q1.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be really good. Because we have to be careful of the idea that just because we build it, they may or may not come.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, several people came up after we were talking in that coffee, and they're just like, yeah, we have like 3 or 4 different types of employees throughout the year. You have those who want to stay here forever and build a life here. You have those who just want to come for the summer. You have those who are actually just here for a month or two, and you just grab them when you can. And they have to try to balance all those things. And, I'm not saying town has an answer for any of these, but there could be different areas. If it's a zoning for, like, one person put an example of, if I was allowed to have, some sort of campers or something on my business property so that people could stay there. And I don't know, so people were kind of talking those areas. And again, it could just start a conversation that we could then hopefully supplement for anything else we're doing.
Great, thank you. Cindy?
After doing the meeting with planning and zoning over the Crossman presentation, went home and really thought about it. And if they had that built out tomorrow, it would be used up, swallowed up. But with the way it was presented, would it really help us the way that it needs to help us? So I was thinking about our available SFEs and how carefully we need to spend those. I would like to see, if we're doing a big development like that, that is allowing for what they consider affordable housing in it, that it needs to be STR restricted. If we're just building more STRs, it does not fix our problem. It doesn't provide the housing. And if there is no deed restrictions, they could get their affordable part, their affordable little town home, and then turn around and sell it at a great profit. Well, that takes that house out of our affordable housing. It no longer exists. So if we were going to spend so many SFEs on a major subdivision, and not necessarily this one, we need to make sure there needs to be some restrictions so it stays affordable, that it just isn't affordable for the first people and they can sell it and make a great process on it. And then I don't know how to say this, and I'm not stepping on any toes, but after the board is removed from the decision-making after the initial sketch plan, I don't know if we should take a little bit of that back and be further in the process before we can say, yes, this is what we want. Because if we had initially say yes, and we're not making sure that it's gonna stay affordable, we provided more second homes and we have provided more STRs to our community, but we didn't fix our housing problem. And I think with that, they could use some of Becky Gray, the funding to help make those even more affordable. And then I went to the historical preservation. And we all know that I'm old and I love downtown Buena Vista. And
You're not as old as I am,
oh,
but
well,
you've been around here longer.
I'm old for Buena Vista. Each time there is a presentation for historical preservation, in a short period of time, a building is approved that just does not fit. And our town needs to decide one way or the other whether they want to protect our historical Main Street or they want to give up on it. Because each time they have something like that, nothing ever becomes mandatory. And we get a new building that blocks site views for this and gonna block site views to this and whatever. And we need to decide one way or another, because at the rate we're going, we'll totally lose it whether we want it or not. So I don't know if we could get another presentation further down the road after the budget, which will probably mean another building will come in that doesn't fit. But we need to get serious one way or the other. Either we want to or we don't, and we need to decide. Because if we just leave it up to the developers, quite frankly, rightly, will go for profit and won't go for the historical. And with guidelines, that's all we've got is guidelines. That was my two subjects.
Thank you. Sue, do you have any comments on that same topic,
You know,
that same meeting? Or
It is interesting because I hear from both sides. First, that we have, I mean, and one person did say, I don't know if it's true or not, but just since the word got out that the board was considering making these mandatory, that these two 40-foot building or 40-foot buildings, you know, came into town and started. Now, I don't know if that's okay. All right, that's helpful. So you have at an earlier meeting, the first meeting on this, where Joseph presented or tried to, you know, you also had people saying that they had invested in their building with the building that they already own, with the idea of making it 3 stories at some point or whatever, it makes some higher amount. And some people had, there was one person that spoke, had actually put the infrastructure in to do that. But so then I think you have historic preservation going up against, you know, someone's already, you know, who's already invested in downtown. So I guess what I was wondering, and this is again, not speaking for the board or anything, but is it possible to just sort of grandfather in some things and then close the door on some of the same things? I mean, I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but it was an interesting meeting. I felt like I wish there had been more people at this second one, but I do think between the people on Zoom or one person on Zoom and a couple of people in the audience, that the arguments were pretty well out there on both sides, and that the commission did, you know, a good job of explaining why they feel these are important, and mirroring a lot of what you just said.
In some points, they can make variances, and who knows how that would go, but I do know that they make variances for some people. But once you build something, you can't take it back. Once it's been approved, it's there.
And as I understand it, it kind of becomes the standard for future development. Is that correct, Joseph?
Well, I mean, every development's gonna be unique to that property owner, development or developer and their goals.
So just because you can build 3 stories doesn't mean that everyone will. Most recent example would be the Remax building remodel, right? They could have knocked that building down and gone 3 stories at 40 feet tall. They chose to invest a few $100,000 in only creating a rooftop deck.
Okay.
So I think the blanket statements of X will happen or X will not happen are probably not helpful. But we are actively, I'm meeting with our legal counsel on Friday. We are actively developing code language to make requirements. And that will definitely come before you at the appropriate time. I don't think it will happen this year, to your point of budget season and other agenda items. But that is active work of staff with the commission on getting those code changes drafted in a form that seeks to make things regulatory and yet also recognize the nuance that exists on Main Street today and the variety of different interests there are.
Okay.
So you all will be the deciders of whether or not that code language is what you want, whether it contains everything you want it to contain. So that'll come before you.
At one point, didn't they have that it was the 3-story buildings that were, okay, the one across from the courthouse, I can't think of the name of it. But that was where you would have your 3-story buildings is down that way, and the western part of Main Street was protected, but they have changed that.
That's still the way the architectural design guidelines are written, is that at Court Street eastward, the height would be 35.
Okay, that's if the guidelines were in place. That was.
Yeah, so they're, I mean, that's what they currently say.
Okay.
But they're not regulatory, to your point. And so that's one of the big questions when we talk about height is, should there be a distinction in the code between east and west Street and west of Court Street?
Yeah, thanks for
listening.
Oh, definitely.
Do you have observations that you want to share?
No, I agree with you. You know, and I think John O'Brien always does a beautiful job of describing why it'd be nice to have everything looking that way. But I just don't know on the height restriction whether we'll ever reach agreement on that. 40 feet versus 30 feet. So I don't know, but hopefully on just sort of the look and feel of it, we can make some headway. I'm disappointed that the Historic Preservation Commission seems unhappy with how the La Vista turned out, because I had the impression that La Vista worked very hard with the town to, what do you want it to look like? What do you want it, what is it you need? Well, we need apartments. So we get 16 apartments. If you hadn't built that story there, you'd have 8 apartments. So I think 16 is better than 8. And I think the buildings look nice.
I think there'll be some staff is looking at that for some compromises that we can get sort of a hybrid of some things that would be requirements that make sense, that work well. I mean, they had some very good visuals of things that have worked, and those things weren't big details, but they still made a huge difference when you looked at them. So I mean, I think that you'll see something that will be a good compromise. That's what the staff is working towards, is a good compromise.
Anybody got anything else? We didn't ask the staff. Does the staff have any interaction they want to? Oh, Devin, they're out there. Now it's dark.
Yeah, I am out here. I had to move outside because my friend got home with his 2-year-old, so it wouldn't really be conducive. Yeah, I don't really have much. I've been spending the last 5 days in Northwest Washington on Orcas Island.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, in the San Juans, and my friend and his family have carved out a little life here, and it's really interesting talking with them and their friends and people here on the island, just how similar a lot of like struggles are here. Just to show that we're not alone, you know, housing prices that are skyrocketing, people trying to find creative ways to, you know, to stay and to make a living here. It's very, very similar to our little mountain town. So it makes me feel not alone, but also, I don't know about hopeful yet, but it's just interesting to see the comparatives of tourism economies on an island versus island in the sky in BV. So thank you guys.
Oh, thanks. So do I have a motion?
Well, I do have
Steph.
one just quick thing, if I might. Appreciate the feedback that I heard about the sketch plan session. And your dreams have come true because, as you all might already know, November 16th is a date that you all said you would be willing to do another sketch session.
I was wondering what that was doing on my
So
calendar.
I appreciate you all being very jazzed about continuing to hold that date.
You should have been quite so enthusiastic. No, I think I have.
And if going into that, especially around how that meeting is structured and facilitated, if there's feedback or suggestions you would have, I'm happy to pass those on to the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, just so we can help continue to improve the actual meeting itself. But November 16th is a Wednesday.
What time's the meeting, Joseph?
Sorry?
What time?
7 o'clock.
This is for homestead, did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
And just like last time, my goal is to get you the packet when we get.
See, I just have this little PNC in my calendar. I was like, what's that doing there? Now I see.
It has the week before we go for adjournment.
Sewer line.
Yes, you need support for a letter, or did you already have support for that letter at the very end?
Oh, no. It's a resolution, actually.
There was a letter of support for Habitat for Humanity.
Habitat, yeah, sorry.
To whom it
Yes.
may concern it.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
Chaffee
there's a
County
letter up
Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're right, Cindy. It's on page 80.
I was going to sign off and say, oh, we're almost out of here.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is it?
So that money is coming from where exactly?
Marijuana tax.
Does it have to do with the grow operations?
Is it the meat tab, I think?
It's the marijuana excise
Yeah,
tax.
I think
Oh, yeah.
countywide
Okay.
marijuana tax,
Okay,
primarily coming from the grow and slide.
okay. So it's not anywhere. Okay, great.
Does anyone want to make a motion about this letter?
I'll make a motion for you to approve that letter.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have Swisher Cobb. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes.
I had a quick question about the agenda for next week, the rodeo grounds master plan. I know that's been on a few draft agendas. Is that getting moved just because we have other big things on the agenda, so we don't have time for it, or is it because of the hiccups that we had previously? I'm just kind of curious why I.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you may remember, we decided to hold approving that or adopting that, working with Triview to clean up the properties. They are still proceeding with that. But we have not seen the revised draft agreement for resolving that. So we punted until they clean that up. There's not a whole bunch of leverage points, right? Well, the main leverage that you all have is we don't proceed with annexation discussions. this is a secondary thing that's pretty important to them. So I think our staff thinks that we should wait until that's resolved.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we got budgets, we'll just move it or.
No,
Something.
no, unfortunately, it's. we're waiting
Although
on-
budget is taking up a lot.
That's a big one.
of time, but yeah.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment, follow up on what you were saying, you stole my thunder.
Oh,
But October, I attend like 1 or 2 trustee meetings a year.
yeah, here you are.
So October is cybersecurity awareness. Month. And part of that, town had, this is our second year of doing mandatory cybersecurity awareness training. I think this is the first year that I've had the trustees participate in that. So everyone that has either a laptop, a town issued laptop, town issued email address has to participate in this training. And I'm proud of the little program we've put together. It's pretty concise, but it brings forth a lot of good information and hopefully makes you more aware of your surroundings, and why you get these phishing attacks and all these different ways that our IT systems are vulnerable. So it's really up to you guys to do, to follow those processes. And yeah, I hope you find it informative. Personally, I wish I could share it with all my friends and family. I think it's super informative. I think more and more people get to do it. So I hopefully you guys feel some value in being able to receive that training. So, yeah, till the end of the month to complete it.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, Michael.
You bet. Thank you.
I want to know, are the phishing attempts that I've failed, are they from you or are they from?
Well, so I'll give you a little fair warning. I haven't done that in a while, but you could be certain that right after training, that you will get some phishing attacks. So
Just stop checking your email.
yeah. So just don't click links unless you're really looking for a Sudanese prince.
Not lately.
All right. If there's no further business, is there a motion?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
We have Cobb, Swisher. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Chaffee.
You're welcome. Good night. You have a great night.
You too.
Connect.
So we have an email I sent.
Night.
And then I don't want to treat this. It's not for you to like.
Were you the
Did I not
one?
do that? Yeah.
I was like, who's the one?
Should I not have done that? Because I was trying to figure out.
Somebody else was